Hi everybody and welcome back to the painting channel. Today it's a watercolor. It's all about mixing greens, the colors that I use and the colors that I create from those colors. So let's roll the introduction and let's get right on into the video. Welcome back everybody, and as I normally do at this point, let me just thank all my new subscribers for coming on board lately and help support the channel, as well as all my existing ones. Thank you so much everybody. Your support is invaluable and I thank you very much for that. And if you aren't a subscriber and you are enjoying this, then consider subscribing to the channel. It doesn't cost you anything, but it does help me grow my audience and helps YouTube understand that I'm well worth supporting as a channel. So with that all said, if you like it, click the thumbs up at the end and don't forget to share it with your friends, and at the same time click in the bell icon and add any comments you want to at the end. They'll always be answered and that's fantastic moving forward. And if you want a lot more, then don't forget there is my live stream. Now that has changed a little bit. I just wanted to say now, my live stream is now just on a Monday evening, 7 p.m. London time, and then of course you get my Friday video every Friday morning. Not sure what the topic's going to be, but you get two things each week to look forward to. That's fantastic. Where is my other live stream, I hear you ask? Well, I've put that now to my Patreons. I've given them a lot more. I'm offering my patrons even more than I've ever done before. So if you want to look at my Patreon site, the details are there below in the description. Have a look, nip over, and if you want to get involved, you'll be so welcome. There's a lot to offer you, and there is a Facebook community where I am encouraging all my patrons to get to know each other and to sort of interact with each other, not just with them, but also with me too. And it's just a great community that we're building of like-minded people. So have a look at that if you want to get involved. It costs you a few pennies a month, you know, coffee, 2 coffees, something like that. It's not a great deal, but you get so much back from me personally, as well as my thanks for coming on board. So take a look at that. But on top of that, you will be getting a whole new stream all to yourselves each and every week, in addition to everything else that's on there. Now let's talk about mixing some greens. So first and foremost, let me just talk about some of the colors that you can actually use for mixing greens. And you'll be surprised just how many colors that you've got in your palette can create a green of some description. So I'm just going to use a panel here just to create a few and then mix a few over here. And then we'll look at a few cool ones and a few warm ones. And then in the last panel, I'll just do a little painting, just a quick study to show you how you can bring some of those greens together in your painting. Okay, so first off, let's look at some of these colors. Now of course we've got all our blues, so let's just come in with a little touch and only a small little bit of indigo blue there. Very lovely blue. Gonna wash my brush out, come straight back with some ultramarine blue. Now I'm gonna make separate puddles to these in a moment, but for the first off, let's just get some of these colors down. We've got a lovely cobalt blue. I do, it's one of my most favorite blues. And then of course we've got Phithalo Blue, which is the closest color you can buy to the process color called cyan, and that is Phithalo Blue. There are other blues, there are other greens and blues, there are things like this one, which is a magenta, sorry, not magenta at all. This is a a violet ultramarine. There you go. I'm so sorry, completely messed that up. But let me just carry on, because if I now mix each of these in turn, there's a really heavy color of indigo and that one too, but to one of those I'm going to mix up now some Aureolin into this one, and it's very tough because I did put too much on, got to admit to that. I'm going to come in with a bit more, and you can see how you make a very dirty green, but nonetheless it's a nice green. and any permutations to these. So don't think that, you know, because you got one you can't do anything else. Here I'm mixing up some Indian yellow into this one, and let's get that going. And you'll find that the Aureolin is a very cool yellow and will give you a very different look to Indian yellow, which is quite a warm yellow. Let me just lift some of that up before we go any further. Okay, so that gives us two greens based on just two yellows and indigo as an idea. Now let's use the same two colours. Let's just come across with some ultramarine. That's a little strong. Let's come back in and a little bit of ultramarine there. A bit more. There you go. And another piece of ultramarine there. And then let's use the same Aureolin in this one. And you can see how that cool yellow has changed as the blue has changed. Now the only difference in this one and this one is that or that. And that's how we are making various greens. Let's come in with the Indian yellow again. And once more, you get a very different looking green. But all these greens can be used in your painting moving forward. So with just a few colors on your palette, you can create so many different greens. Let's look at Cobalt Blue now. So let's use some Cobalt in here. Let's put some down there and some on there, just maybe a tad more. There we go. And use the same Aureolin in this one. Now you can see all of a sudden that the green is getting somewhat fresher. And one could use that in sort of foregrounds. Where these are sort of grayer and duller, they can be used in backgrounds, this one. And likewise, this one can be used in more foreground applications or considered for them. But this one and this one are very, very close together in terms of color. So that one I think is fantastic for using in sort of a foreground green. Now let's come in and look at our sort of final blue really. And this is our Phthalo Blue, or as I said just now, it's very, very close to the process color cyan. In fact, one or two color manufacturers call their version cyan and not Phthalo Blue. So let's add to that the Aureolin again, and look how fresh that green has suddenly become, even more so than this one. It's a lovely green that it creates and well worth remembering. So these are just a few blues and a few color combinations to work with those blues. Now this yellow into this Indian yellow into the blue is still, it's struggling a little bit, and the Aureolin or lemon yellow is very cool, and it's reacting quite differently with these things here. These are turning out sort of grey greens and are useful. This above all is probably the best application of getting a fresher Indian yellow with a blue, so it's worth considering. Now let's just go in quickly while we got the color going. Let's just look at this one very quickly. This is a violet ultramarine, and it's still a blue, but it's got some red into it, of course, and that's going to significantly change the outcome. I'm just going to put some on here. It's got a little bit too wet, not too much of a problem. Lift that off. And let's just come in with the same two yellows once more. Now look how this will be corrupted. That yellow gets corrupted, but it doesn't really turn that green. And the reason being that you've got a lot of violet in the blue with the red, and it's dirtying the yellow. But let's do the same in here, and you'll have an even worse effect. So not all blue series really make great bedfellows when it comes to mixing a green. It's a very dirty, poor green. This one, with a bit of work, could be used, but you get the idea. Now then, let us come away from the blues and let us look at the potential of other colors that make greens. For instance, let's look at this one. This is neutral tint. Now, so the use of neutral tint is not always well thought about, but it can make an ideal green. Let us just put in a tap of Indian yellow to that, and all of a sudden you get quite a dirty greenish colour. It's not a great green, but it's still nonetheless a green. And let's put some more neutral tint to one side here. And let's come in with, making sure I've got the right colour, let's come in with this. And you get a very grubby, dirty colour. But it is a type of green colour. So there are certain times when you can use something like these to give you that green bias, and it's still only 2 yellows, and we've just added another base color in terms of the neutral tint. So let us come back now and where are we? Let us use some, instead of the other yellows, let us just look at this color. This is a lovely raw sienna, and you could equally use yellow ochre. Either one will do you very, very well. Let's put 2 little patches down very, very quickly. And let me add to that some ultramarine blue. We didn't use this in the other colors over here, but we're going to make a very dirty gray green color. To that we can probably add a little bit more of the yellow just to punch it up a little bit more. But you can see that it is a sort of blue and a yellow of sorts, and you get a very dirty green. Let's do the same thing with some, let's use, for instance, just tap in some phthalo blue and do the same sort of thing. Now the phthalo blue is a very, very powerful blue. It's got to be said. Its staining potential is colossal, and so too its sort of sibling phthalocyanin green can also be quite a powerful green and not unleashed willy-nilly. But you do get to see that even the ochres and the siennas can give you a type of green. They may not be as lush as this one, but they are nonetheless a green. Okay, so now I will use something else. This is one of Daniel Smith's ZBukvic ranges of greys. Now, grey you would think wouldn't make too much of a green. Well, if you've got a blue-black, and this is a blue-black is actually ultramarine blue mixed with ivory black. But if you've got a cool black or cool grey, and let's just try this one. I don't happen to have used too many of these, but that is another grey from the ZBukvic range. This is slightly cooler. That's a warm grey. This is a cool grey. So let's put those 2 there, and then let us add in 2 more swatches of them. Let's put a little bit next to it here, quite wet so we can work it, and then a case of the other one right next to it, like so. Now let's just tap in the same yellows in a sense. Let's just go, I'm not producing the Indian yellow, let's just go in with the Aureolin yellow. So this is really, I use this in my oil painting too. It really does have great effect. That is a wonderful distance muted green, because we are using the black to dull, but the blueness in the coolness of the black color to turn the yellow green. And you get a very slightly different, but you get the idea that you have quite a nice distance green by using these 2 grey colors. Now that only works, of course, if you've got those particular colors in your palette. They are from Daniel Smith, and they are basically the colors that are part of this Joeseph ZBukvic range of greys and warm greys and cool greys. But there you are, that is the first panel completed, and you get some idea of some of the various greens you can make out of just a few blues, 2 yellows, and then coming across here for a little bit of the yellow ochre, or indeed as I use, raw sienna. And these are just showing you how blacks, blue blacks, greys will turn a lemon or Aureolin yellow into a distance cooler yellow to enjoy in, to give you some aerial perspective. Okay, now what I want to do is move to the next panel. Right, so for this panel I want to mix up some of the standard green color Now I don't use very many of them. There are all sorts of greens out there you can use. You can use Hooker's Green, Sack Green, Viridian, many of them. I tend to use but two, and this is one that is called Phthalo Green. Now on its own you can see it's an extremely aggressive green. So let's put a few colors of this across the page and let's see what we can do to temper it. I would never, if ever, unless, I don't know, I have used it on its own, but I feel that this color left unchecked is too aggressive. But let's lighten it up. Let's put some Aureolin in and let's see what happens to that green by doing so. All of a sudden we make it almost neon. But there are reasons that we can do this and use this color in some of our foreground leaves. Let's do the same thing again. Let's make another color across here. And this, bear in mind, is just using one green. Oh, take that off of there and there. This is just using one green for the job. Put another swatch in there too. I've got to stop flicking the paint there. That would not be good. Okay, now let's come in with some of this yellow, the Indian yellow, and see how effective that is on tempering our green. It doesn't look great deal of difference because the green is so powerful, but there is a certain acidity coming into this particular green, and you'll see more of the changes as they dry. So let's leave that one for the moment, and let's come in with this one. Let's play around with this one. Let us put some transparent orange into our green. Now we haven't used this color yet, but it is a great way of putting sort of burnt grasses in, certain areas that need a little bit of green, but maybe a little bit of orange just to warm them through. But you can see by continuing adding the color, you are changing this so nicely. And I think you can agree that that does temper our green. So you can see some variations now from using the one green. Let us carry on. Let us put in more of this vicious green. I call it a vicious green, and I use this both in my oils and in my watercolors. I think it's a great color green because, as I hope to show you, one green color does so much. Now let's temper green with red. Tempering green with red, of course, we are introducing the green's natural enemy when mixed together, and that is, of course, its complementary color. So red and green are complementaries, and by mixing the two together, we actually create no harmony. We create a devastating attack on the green because it absolutely neutralizes that green, but it's tempered the power of the green. So it's worth considering. Let's add some more. Let's go in again. Let's add some more Phthalo Green. Now we're on to our extra colors, and we're coming in with some magenta. Same principle as this one, but what the magenta will do is adding some blue to the green too. So it's now cooling down our green. It's making it colder, and it can be a distant shadow green. It can be so many things, but it is nonetheless a very different green. Let's come in with another square of phthalocyanine. This time I'm going to put in and show you what raw sienna will do to that green. I don't think, if honesty, memory serves, it will not have a greater degree other than some of these up here, but it's still worth trying out the color and seeing how that mixes down into your picture further on. There we go. So let that dry, and you can see how one green is creating so many variants in terms of warms and cools in color. So let us come in with a where are we? I want to use the Indian red that I use, and this will have a very similar effect to the magenta, but not, there's more sort of earth tone browns into this mix, so you're not going to get that purity. You're going to get this sort of grayer, duller color, but nonetheless all these colors from the addition of one or two other colors on the palette are variants to the original. let's look at another green. Let's look at the other one that I use in my palette quite a lot nowadays. I never used to, but I do now. And that is Cobalt Turquoise. It by default is already quite a cool coloured green. So we can freshen that up. Let's come in with some, actually let's leave that one so you can refer to it. Let's come in with a second square of the same colour, like so. And then to that we can then go in with some Aureolin. Let's see what this Aureolin does to this cobalt green. It really gives it a very fresh feel. I quite like that. Okay, that's very, very fresh colour. Let's come in again. Hopefully you're still with me. There's a lot to painting greens, and it's an area that many people shy away from when they're painting, both in oils and in watercolours. And it doesn't have to be like that. Just tap that back out so I dropped a little bit more in. So let's come in with some Indian yellow now and see how that affects our cobalt green, our cobalt turquoise. Again, it gives us much more acidity because there's a little bit of red in there too, unlike the Aureolin. Let's come back in one more time in here, especially. Let's just add some more pigment to that. There we are. And for that one, let me add some of the transparent orange and see how that really dirties up the colour. And very differently to this one up here, it's got to be said. Let's just come in and add some more blue, give that some form of equal balance between the two. So we can get as close to as we can to 50-50 by making the mix about right. But you get to see how many variants we're going to get. And what can I do finally? Well, I can show you what the difference in one more blue that we actually haven't tried. But I find it quite similar too. I don't use Prussian Blue, but I have got some, I think I've got some there. I'm just going to check. This is good old Cerulean Blue, and Cerulean Blue is very, very close to the Phthalo Blue. Not quite the same, but it is a very energetic blue. I'm going to put two little swatches there. Maybe add a bit more color to that one. There we go. And just clean out and put some lemon to the one. And that will make a beautiful green, I hope. Get it right. Very electric. Very, very fresh as a green. And then let's just come in with the Indian yellow onto this one. So my yellows have been throughout just 3 yellows. I've used Indian yellow and I've used Aureolin, and I've used raw Sienna. For my blues, I've actually gone down here and used the Indigo, Ultramarine Blue, Cobalt Blue, the Phithalo Blue, and the Ultramarine Violet. And the only other blues that I use really are this one, which is good old Cerulean. I love this blue. It's a good colour. Just, I think I didn't know if I did or not, but this is a lovely blue too. This is Prussian. And Prussian Blue is a very yellow blue already, so it doesn't work nicely with too much Aureolin, but it works very, very well with the Indian yellow because they are almost sort of bedfellows in many ways. So you get a lovely, rich sap green colour by using the Prussian Blue and Indian yellow. There you go. So that pretty much sums up all the greens that we are, or that I make with my palette. So I have such a variety of greens to choose from, and I've got to be honest with you, in all fairness, I probably forget most of them when I'm actually painting a painting, but know that they are actually there to be used from just the few colors that I carry in my arsenal or in my palette. So yeah, you have some of them, I'm sure. And if you have, then you can go ahead and do a similar little swatch on a spare bit of paper and see how you get on with your greens. And obviously I'm going to start with a little bit of sky just to give the image some color. So I'm just going to put in a little bit of sky very, very quickly. I'm not too worried. This is just a quick how-to, which is turning into anything but quick, I think. Okay, so we've got our sky down very, very quickly, and I'm going to let that stay there, just some puffy clouds, nothing serious. And I'm going to put in a streak of my yellow into my sky color, which I used was Cobalt. And I'm just going to put a very, very fresh light color right the way through here, which is the top of a field maybe, something like that, and just leave that be, let that dry and do nothing more. And then I will add some lemon yellow to that, more so, and come all the way down and let that bleed out and let that travel down into the foreground like that. And now I will put something on here when it's dry, but in the meantime we'll leave it at that and we see how we go. Whilst this is drying at the top here, I could be a little bit dangerous and just add something else. I'm going to come in with some indigo, very, very strong, and you saw what I did by adding other colors to that. But I want to cool it down, so I'm going to actually add some cobalt to that blue, make it even bluer but quite dark. And I'm going to be adding some lemon or aureolin to that, so I get a very coolish green. Now that could be cooler still, I think, so I'm going to bring some of that over. Add some more blue. There we go. A really, really distant green. So I'm going to scratch that in over the top and suggest that we've got lots of tree forms. I'm going to just miss the top of that green because I know it's not dry yet and it will just go everywhere if I'm not careful. I'm just going to try and show you the difference between the distance greens and also nearer or closer green colors. I'm going to put a nice big old tree in there, say, let it come down, couple of shrubs, couple of bushes, and off we go. There we are. So while that's drying out, let's just pop over to this side, and once again let us put in a little bit of sky, just another tap of some blue, got a little bit of green in there too, not to worry, you get the idea certainly, I'm sure. A little bit of lovely blue in here. Like that. Another little cloud form and just let that settle down. Like that. Coming through, picking up a little bit of shallow. Actually, we could drop a little neutral tint into that. Not very much, just a little bit to shift it off the blue-greens. There we are. And that gives us a nice little cloud. Just play around that for a couple of minutes because we are really waiting for the other one to dry up on me. Just soften the effects, soften that round there and there, a little bit strong. Take that down, let that fade out to nothing. In fact, you can do that even easier by adding just some pure water underneath there and letting that little bit of pigment in there just run down and away. Okay, I think that would do. Just let that dry up. He says, as he keeps going. Oh, that's fair enough. Okay, no problems at all. Is this dry enough? Probably dry enough to continue. So now let's come in with another green. Let's come in with something that's a little richer. Let's come in with a bit of orange. And let's take our green to it's almost like a dirty rust color. And let's put in a couple of brushes in the foreground here, like so. We can come in with some of the cooler turquoise green, which is nice because it will work nicely with that orange and give you a much deeper green color in the foreground, like so. You can play around, and I'm not actually doing anything, I'm just creating little layers that suggest to you that we've got something in the foreground. Now I can come in with some of that lemon and just put some of that strength in there. And in fact, what I will do is I'll come in with some Indian yellow and some of the Phithalo Green and just let that pump itself up and become a stronger, closer green color in these tops of these bushes here. And if you want to, you can bring that all the way down through here into some grasses, like so. And you've created the whole distance, middle distance, and the fresher, crisper grasses on the close, in the foreground. I'm just doing that very, very quickly just to try and show you some of the color variants to give you some distance in your greens. Going to let that settle down, do no more, and let's just come back to our sky, which is a little bit damp. We can get away with that. To that, I want to come back in. I'm going to clear a couple of these out. Come back in and let's put in some Ultramarine Blue this time. And to the Ultramarine Blue, I want to put in just a little tap of lemon, a bit more than that, there you go, and a little tap of raw sienna, more blue. It's worth mixing your colours over time and getting them really where you need them to be. So let us just come in with a nice dark. This is suggesting that there's a bit of moody light at the background, the clouds, etc. So it's a denser colour. And let's come in with a little bit of that lovely violet colour. I love this violet ultramarine. It does give me that sort of dense green colour. Now it isn't green, you're mixing a blue, you're right, but look how it merges with the green and the brain starts thinking that that is a distance green, heavily shadowed by whatever is going on in the clouds maybe, I don't know, but it just suggests that it's a distance colour for me that I can then work on moving forward like that. There you go. If you then want to come in with something that is a little middle color, we can come in with another green. It's going to fuse, but that is already been degraded with the blues in my brush. So we get a nice middle value of green through here. But if I want to freshen that up, let's take some of that out. Let's freshen that up very, very quickly with some Aureolin and a little bit, maybe, let's try some Cerulean Blue. Very, very aggressive green. Let's just bring that in here. Look how fresh that makes that. But we can temper that. We can come in with some raw sienna and temper that green. So we now get a variant that takes the pressure and the power off that first color, taking it all the way down to the foreground. Now what have we created? Well, we could have created a bit of a hill coming on here. Let this dry out. We can put some other colors in here just to make something more of the scene. Here we've got a nice set of variants going on, and let's come in again. I think I need to put the hairdryer on it, so I'm going to dry it up first and then come back to it. Okay, so it's all nice and dry. You can see how the colors have really settled down to each other. Just changing the brush a little bit to a smaller round rigger, and I'm coming in with some Indigo Blue. Look how strong that is. I'm going to touch that with some some Aureolin, and let's come in with a fresher look at some of these near to but dark greens, like so. And you can come in with lots of light ones to start with. You don't have to start as loudly as that. You can come in with some much brighter greens, maybe a little almost Aureolin on its own, just to lighten up some of that and look to where your light is coming from and emanating from before you come in like that, but then come back in and play around with some of these darker values in the very near foreground, as it were. Now I'm just putting lines, just tiers, and they don't make a great pictorial representation quite in this fashion. I did it deliberately so that you can get to see how the sort of inclusion of different colors of greens and different intensities and sort of degrees of value will change how we see a green. Okay, I'm going to leave that one there pretty much. You get the idea of how we've got cool, medium and close up. Let's come in here now and use the same color, but let's just give this some other form. Let's come in here with a nice line, a nice strength through the center, and I like the way that this is creating what looks like a bit of a hill, something with the trees on top. So I'm going to leave that, and I'm just going to come along here and pretty much end it the same way, but I want to put some more orange into that. I do love the way that orange works with the greens, just breaks up and you get sort of wintry colors or dead grasses, all sorts of things going on. There we are. I'm going to put a little bit of light green into some of that just to play around with the orange just a bit. Let the colours run together and fuse and create all sorts of little eddies and information. I like that. Tap more of orange just in 1 or 2 places, and we're pretty much done. Okay, I can, if I want to, add some more information up here, more shrubs. But I think I've demonstrated the applications of some different greens in your painting. And you know, you can take this forward in any landscape. Just think about the colors that you've got and that you're going to use. Okay, so I hope from these 2 small illustrations that you can get to see how the cool greens work, the close-up, richer, more vibrant greens can come into play, and the same with this one here. They're not exciting landscapes, but they do demonstrate the point. And all of them were made from these across the top here. So do your own little swatch. Have a go at it yourself. Think of the colors that you've got in your palette, mixing up any forms of yellows and any forms of blues, or indeed greens, with other colors on your palette. Mix phthalo green with all the other different colors and just see how different you can make greens appear. And the green doesn't have to be as vibrant as some of these. It can be very, very dull, very, very lost, or it can be really bright and very exciting. So I'll leave that one all to you. So hopefully you found this useful. I'm sorry if it's gone on a little while, but it does take time to sort of do these swatches and paint something, but hopefully you enjoyed it and got something from it. And like I said at the start, if you have, then please consider subscribing and hit the bell icon and click the thumbs up, all those things. Add your comments and it'll be great, and I look forward to seeing each and every one of you in my very next video. And don't forget Monday's live streams. There you go. All the best for now. Happy painting. Stay safe. Bye bye guys. Bye bye.